Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Anurapolis. Anura means frog, and Polis means city in ancient Greek. I am your tour guide, Nicole, and will be happy to answer any questions you have at the end. Here, in the middle of one of Australia's top institutions and soon to be world class frog research facility, is a throbbing hubbub of wildlife and a new urban wetland created for the local frog species to dwell and enjoy their days. Take a seat, I'll tell you some history and necessary information first. As many of you must know by now, urbanization is taking over the world. The once soft soil is replaced by impermeable concrete and flowing rivers polluted. Wildlife are effectively driven from their homes. The increasing threat of near extinction for many species across the world is an upset to the Earth's natural ecosystem. An important urban impact is the lack of green corridors for wildlife to travel to and from safely in the hunt for food or a home. Especially with humans around, most prefer to hunt at night under the cover of darkness. But with significant light pollution, it is dangerous and difficult. The urban heat island effect has also greatly altered the city's environment's conditions, forcing wildlife to relocate. Despite knowing this, not much has changed in how we build our cities or treat urban nature. Humans are quick to remove everything non-human, buildings designed to purposely keep nature out. But Anurapolis is going to change that, and we want to bring dirt and non-human life back into our lives. So if you didn't know, the University of Melbourne had an old lake that was used to house native flora and fauna, and was a fundamental source of freshwater food and life. Old photos show its picturesque nature and are a testament to the history of the Wurundjeri people who used this lake as a food source to capture eels or harvest vegetation. The lake was filled in the late 1930s for a new chemistry building, which begs the question of what happened to the wildlife that relied on the lake, and can they be brought back to what was once their land? There are few successful presidents that have included plants, animals, and humans as stakeholders, which show a clear gap in the knowledge, with one successful president being the Perth Cultural Centre, Urban Wetlands, which has meaningfully integrated the natural system into the built environment and received positive community feedback, and a significant increase in numbers and types of species observed there. Now, the project was initially briefed by Hassell, whose aspirations neglected the non-humans, and so this was rectified to ensure non-human inclusion. The first aspiration alludes to the building being an observational laboratory for scientists, students, and wildlife that resides there. The building should also aim to bring together other non-humans by providing safe, green, dark corridors. The second seeks a unified collaboration to improve the biodiversity of the site and a collaborative caring of the non-humans to discover innovative ways to help urban wildlife thrive. The third is for some habitats to be protected from humans and can only be observed. The wildlife there are allowed to live in autonomy. And the fourth is to ensure future design and construction decisions will be made for the benefit of the wildlife. Okay, so we are integrating non-humans, but why is it Frog City, not Bird Bungalow or Possum Palace? Well, around the world, the frog species has decreased significantly since the last few decades. This is in part due to large-scale deforestation. Frogs find it very hard to adapt, needing the cover of plants or darkness, as most are usually nocturnal, and especially large water bodies, like lakes and rivers, which tend to be pushed underground or are instead filled up to create more land to develop, which is why we've chosen to put in a lake. Now, I know what you might be thinking. How can reconstructing the pre-existing biome of the urban environment possibly teach us about the interspecies potential before human intervention and environmental degradation? Well, the idea is that by designing for non-humans through reconstructing the natural biome and terrain of the environment, it will spark novel and innovative architectural design and construction. It will also encourage the inclusion of more than human communities and promote eco-centric lifestyles for the human users of the site, particularly through exploring the themes of dirt, cleanliness, darkness, light, time, and wilderness tidiness, which ultimately also benefits the lives of non-humans in the built environment. So onto our main clients of Anurapolis, our frogs. They are amphibious creatures, and so let me introduce Alex, Shruti, and Kimmy. Their different characteristics of sunbathing, climbing, and burrowing was what led to the designs of Anurapolis. However, they all require fresh water bodies to breed, to keep their skin moist and flexible as they actually breathe through their skin. But frogs are dying prematurely because of a virus called chytrid, or a contagious like frog cancer, where their skin hardens over time. And so to combat this, you'll see some anti-chytrid features such as sunny rock piles in shallow warm water, embankments to protect from cold winds, and shading of the wetlands should be avoided. But as it is a university, students aren't always around. Cross-referencing this with the monthly mean rainfall and seasons of the Kulin people, the original owners of the land, crucially, porneet or tadpole season is during semester and a rainy month. So a safe and protected habitat is essential for our frogs, while still providing the humans at UniMel somewhere to learn and relax. So at this lake, there are 7 terrains to represent the 7 seasons, where the porneet season contains the frog islands, mangroves, and water ferns to help increase the chances of successful breeding and their survival. Because of this, the lake is also sectioned into 3 levels of accessibilities. Roughly half of the lake is inaccessible and given to the non-humans to live comfortably and freely, except for the researchers' island, which is directly connected to the frog research facility underground. And so, with the average amount of rainfall also considered, some areas' accessibility depends on the water level. September, October, also tadpole season, November, December, when the frogs are still growing up, have the largest amounts of rainfall. So the stepping stones below us to the central island is covered, completely cutting off half of the lake. Then the always accessible areas further up here have shallower waters with boulders and rock pools. Now we'll start our walk through the eastern building on your left. Here, all the corridors facing the lake, you will notice that they do not have lights above. This is an architectural feature to minimize the impact of artificial light on the nocturnal, non-human life. In the day, the corridor is brightly lit, even on a cloudy day, for people to travel through easily, and at night, the reflected light from adjacent rooms will light up the floor for you. Of course, if you are afraid of the dark, there are brightly lit internal corridors to use. On the other hand, the student biology lab, which is not used after hours, is able to have a full height window to maximize views over the water and mangroves during the day. And as we spoke about different users during different months, most of these ground floors are open to nature and for non-humans to potentially run through the site when no humans are around. This means after hours, the site is returned to the non-humans, where a large percentage of them are nocturnal creatures. And at roughly dawn, the site is then reoccupied by humans. And so we'll be coming out to Old Union Lawn, now named the Growling Grounds after Kinney, the growling grass frog. So there are these rocky, earthy boulders that surround the site. Boulder is a motif in the pre-existing wetlands and a key element in the ideal habitat for frogs and the survival of all living beings. So the slow sloping bank here provides other non-humans access to a fresh water source. Anurapolis' design was conceived through the natural way rivers run and create fractal-like shapes, leading to its irregular, angular geometric language. And to the left, before we enter, are public seatings situated in the lake, designed to make you feel as though you are immersed. It is a really nice place to sit during the summer. The wind of the water helps cool the air, and it's actually really refreshing. So now out of the sun and into Sudel's subway, which is named after the burrowing frog. This underground connects each tower together. This forked passageway is a homage to the original flow of the Bovary Creek through the old lake towards the Yarra River. Then to the left is All Things Frog. This is the frog research facility and an observation bubble. The observation bubble is also adjacent to the frog specimen room, where sometimes frog-specific tours happen. This bubble will also allow researchers to further their understanding of how the frogs react in different environments. The bubbles gently pierce the ground or water, allowing the humans to view the frogs closely whilst shielded by rocks or vegetation so as not to startle them. And a fun fact, right above our heads right now are the frogs' very own passageway, a labyrinth of tunnels crisscrossed below each building so the frogs can travel across site easily away from the eye of a predator. Where if you look closely at the end of the tunnels, the frogs will hide before emerging under the cover of rocks or shrubs. So now we'll take the lift to the Peroni platforms and I'll tell you another fun fact. So almost every floor of each building is a unique configuration. This is because here at the Great University of Melbourne, we aim to impart professional knowledge upon our students to ready them for the vast opportunities within the research world by designing a more immersive experience into the real world of a scientist. So in a concept named anchors, the facilities that the students use the most, such as labs or study spaces, are anchor points, and research facilities line the way. So looking at the map of the ground floor, the green represents the student programs and the blue, researchers. And here we are at level 4. Similarly, the programs are scattered to encourage passive or visual connection to real-world research. You should also notice that the corridors are jagged and some a little narrow. This is designed opportunity for conversation and friendship, and hopefully collaborations between staff or faculties. It allows moments for pauses in between transition, which increases the chances of people stepping aside and talking when they bump into each other. Then, in the strive to reintroduce dirt, we also have to consider particular research environments. For example, in this Venn diagram, considering each category of design, almost all the spaces can be classified as dirt, and the category for cleanliness only contains PC2 to 4 laboratories, which require fully sealed environments. And the spaces that do not belong to either category exist between the two extremes. And so, in order to mediate between the environments of dirt and cleanliness, there is a transition decontamination zone for researchers in purple here to change clothes and shoes before entering the sealed lab. And if you still haven't realized it yet, we aim to provide students with a living laboratory full of uncontrolled, non-human life forms and self-sustaining ecosystems to observe and study, like this place we're coming up to called the Valley. There are at least a couple of valleys at each building. The valleys were created as architectural cracks and crevices on the building's facade to allow non-humans and nature their own space in the urban environment. And as previously mentioned, it is a way to slowly reintroduce dirt and life into the building. To help this, the buildings are also made from rammed earth, an ancient technology that utilizes the dug out soil from the site to reduce material waste. It's finished matte, and its rough surface also provides a natural scaling wall for non-humans. Then here on the left, embedded into the buildings, are these tree-sized planters, essentially creating a livable facade, as non-humans can bury themselves or dig homes along the verticality of the structure. Similarly, another one of my favorite areas is the Central Tower's atrium. Please have a look at it after the tour. It is made from living concrete, which is more porous than normal concrete and allows plants and vegetation to spread and grow over time, so it begins to take over the interior, reintroducing alternate life, dirt, and nature back into the building. Then, as I mentioned before, in a bid to reduce the impact of artificial light on nocturnal wildlife, light wells are introduced to lessen its intensity and impact than if the building was made of glass curtain walls. But sometimes night lights are important. And if any of you by chance are here at night and you use the bathroom, take a moment, peek out of the thin windows, you will most likely see a couple of frogs sitting on the ledge. They have adapted to use lights at night as hunting grounds for insects. Consequently, being around a nightlight would make the frog easier for predators to see. However, in Australia, there aren't that many predators, except for cats or large hunting birds, which aren't too common around the university. And so if you step back from Anurapolis, you'll see it begins as a large cluster of Voronoi ruins like the valleys that seemingly crumble into the wetlands and the moat surrounding it, creating small stepping stones and piles of rocks for children to climb or for frogs to sunbathe. Then as the years pass, the angular irregular structure allows time and nature greater impact, meaning that the water will gradually erode the sharpness of the rocks, the slope of the banks, and the vegetation will grow and tumble to smoothen the extruded exteriors, to eventually meet the water at its edge. So today we've seen how reconstructing the pre-existing biome of the urban environment can lead to novel and interesting architectural interventions that can benefit the flourishing of more than human communities. And Anurapolis aimed to integrate not just our students, researchers, and public, but animals and plants. We have seen ways to reduce artificial light's negative impact on our nocturnal life whilst providing views, and ways to maximize the site's potential by considering hours of the day or seasons, whilst also giving them places to make their home in the facade, and possibly to bring them back into the building. But most importantly, as a more than human site, Anurapolis is a place for all to observe and learn. And with that, it concludes our tour of Anurapolis, a living wetland laboratory. I hope you learned a little more about frogs and integrating wildlife into the built environment. So thank you for visiting. I hope to see you again.